What is an open secret in your profession that we regular folk don't know or generally aren't allowed to be told about? At the airlines, we generally have no idea where your bag is at any given time. It follows a chain of events to get to the right place. If it ends up missing, no one is looking for your bag. Your file gets loaded in a computer, and when your bag is eventually scanned somewhere, a person is notified to grab it before it moves on to somewhere else. This also means, if you jump to an earlier flight, there is a strong chance that your bag is going to fly on the original flight. The time is usually too little to go find it, retag it and get it to a new flight. If you jump to another airline and we have already retagged it / handed it off to a different airline, it is done. We are not going to be able to retrieve it. It is flying on that flight point. Just because your bag tag shows CLT on it does not mean it was accidentally sent there. We often send bags through multiple cities as it will reunite you and your bag hours faster than the next direct flight. Sometimes, we even send it on other airlines that you never even flew on. We may even send it the other way around the globe. Lax to DXB, Dubai. You may have flown through London on British Airways, but the fastest way for me to send your bag may be through Seoul, South Korea on Delta and Korean Air. We try our best, but it's a question of volume, staffing, time, and technology. Not my profession, but as someone who is interested in it, runway models are all very underweight. In other news, water is wet. Usually BMIs in the 15, 16s, and they are often told they are too fat, getting towards the upper 16s. But they don't say weight stuff, usually for plausible deniability reasons. They'll use measurements and inches. Certain other kinds of models are more like 16, 17s. High fashion / runway models are the skinniest point. If you don't know, a BMI of the 18th of May 25 is the healthy range. In terms of categorizations of anorexia according to the DSM, above 17 is mild, 16s is moderate, 15s is severe anorexia, and under 15 is extreme. Although the most common shock photos of anorexics are like miss of 12 or 13, most anorexics don't even get that thin. It's a problem, and adds to many people with anorexia not feeling sick enough, because they are not so thin their organs are shutting down, and they look like an actual skeleton. That level is rare. Many people at higher weights are still very sick. Of course, there is more to eating disorders than just a low weight. But I'm certain that a very large amount of models are anorexic and do everything they can to hide that point. Those rules some places have put out about models having to be a healthy weight or over a BMI of like 18 are an absolute joke, because clearly none are remotely near that high point. We are so used to this that we often don't realize it's unhealthily underweight. Even most actresses on TV etc. point are a little underweight or ranging close to it, though not nearly as much as runway / professional models. The standard in Hollywood nowadays is probably doing massive amounts of exercise and hovering right around the borderline between underweight and healthy, 18's BMI, so that they look underweight despite being maybe not, because of being fairly muscular and usually getting some minor plastic surgeries / lipo / fillers, although a good amount of actresses are just plain underweight. It just depends on if they try to focus on being healthy or don't really care. Probably in the 1990s is when it was the most about being just skinny, but more recently there's the added pressure of maintaining both the healthy weight and standards that most people would have to be underweight to match. The underweight route is actually probably easier than staying at a healthy weight yet maintaining the standards they feel pressure to. Fun fact, just because someone is still attractive doesn't mean they aren't unhealthily underweight. Not talking about Instagram models and the like here at all, though Mayo, or certain models who have gotten into it through family connections, because those aren't real models. TLDR, the standard in both modeling and Hollywood is a look that is quite underweight. That is the ideal in Western society, looking underweight, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. There are massive insane amounts of pressure around this in these industries. People often are in denial about how bad it really is. Oil industry. They don't give a fuck about fuel. The only reason we burn diesel or gasoline is it's a byproduct of fractional distillation. The only other way to get rid of it is to put it back in the ground. Especially gasoline. It's literally thousands of variations of hydrocarbons. No quality or uniformity. The fuel system is basically a disposal system. The oil industry makes the most money in a barrel of oil off high-end lubricants. Polymers as well. Tar, gasoline, and diesel are not very profitable. Most of what you pay at the pump is taxes and distribution costs. Same thing for natural gas. It's basically worthless. They frequently flare it in the open to get rid of it, so they can get more oil. Again, most of what you pay is taxes and distribution costs. More so distribution costs, since pipelines are expensive and take some time for the investment to reach maturity. The price of NG will continue to fall. Out of all the hydrocarbons we use for fuel, propane is probably the only one that's actually high quality and clean. 100% stable high octane, near zero pollution aside from carbon, and it makes the engine last forever because the flame tends to blow the oil less than gasoline and has less particulates. Only downside is it's like 5% of a barrel of oil. Most of the propane we have today is stripped from natural gas. The only better fuel for an engine than that is pure ethanol. Point on the construction side of frac, 95% of the workforce can't pass a drug test. The industry does full piss and hair tests every 6 months. Every time a drug van shows up at random to a frac site, 80% plus of the workforce will flee. Dozens of companies on a frac site. Failing the test is an instant blacklist. Running away means getting fired, but you can find more work. Lots of meth goes with the long hours and no sleep. Big oil is actually a handful of gatekeeping megacorps. Most of the oil industry is full of small to medium sized companies. Oil is only mega profitable when the price of oil is over $60 a barrel. The oil industry makes all that crazy money with volume. Once you factor in inflation to the price of a gallon of gas, pre-corona, it's actually extremely cheap. Even at $5 a gallon. Therapist here. Point: we genuinely care about you. We care about you so much that your fuck ups hurt us. That's why we bitch about you to our friends and colleagues over a beer on Friday night. Point edit. Just to add some clarity to ease concerns people have about opening up to therapists for fear of judgment, I'm not advocating judgment. I don't go to my friends and say, oh my gosh, this person told me about this thing they did 10 years ago that really haunts them. Can you believe they did that? What gets me is a situation like this. A man and his teenage son come into treatment because the son is suicidal. I watch as the man berates, belittles, and criticizes his son, while the son slowly sinks deeper and deeper into the couch in a vain attempt to disappear. My instinct to watching this unfold is to protect this kid. I want to jump up and shout at this man for being such an asshole, but that wouldn't be helpful. Instead, I connect with this man, acknowledge his love and concern for his son, reframe his criticisms as an attempt to help steer his son in the right direction, and lament with him how all his effort is only pushing his son further away. Then, I gently challenge him. Or maybe not. If our relationship isn't strong enough yet for me to challenge him, then my only recourse is to swallow my personal reactions, listen, validate, and set ground rules that include general statements about not engaging in verbal abuse during session. Point: after doing this multiple times a week, the pain starts to build up. Finally, being able to express my feelings to a trusted other is what allows me to go back into work on Monday and do it all over again. I don't know if people don't know this or if people just refuse to acknowledge it, but in education, students are largely just passed on through school. This is mostly done in elementary and middle school. High school is another story, but even there a lot of teachers will just pass you because their job might be at stake if they fail you. Point: why is this an issue? Well, at the lower grades this is often caused by students that cannot read at grade level. There are other factors of course, but this is a big one, and it's important. The connection between reading ability and success is known. If you are 25 and have the reading level of a 14-year-old, you probably aren't doing something that will net you much in the way of cash. Point: and the problem just continues and continues and builds and builds. And then you end up with a 9th grader that should not be in any of their classes. And it becomes an issue for the teacher who now has to figure out how to teach to the extremes that exist. Kids that should probably be in 6th grade versus kids that are in the right place. And because teachers get such grief for failing students, the implication becomes that the teacher is not doing enough for the student. They don't point So you get someone graduating high school that never should have. And I have heard the argument, well, they aren't going to college anyway, so what's the problem? Seriously. The problem is that we as a society should not be okay with this. The problem is that school should produce people that are capable of meeting the challenge of adulthood head on. Instead, teachers have to cater to students that have been passed through the system instead of given the resources and support that they need. And why aren't they getting that support? Because it costs money. And that money comes from taxes. And, well, you see my point. You can see the difference between different class levels too. Kids in advanced classes are usually going to do just fine. They are capable. They have the tools to move on. And I'm not concerned for their future. All of the kids that skate by only taking the bare minimum classes, I'm concerned. Because trust me, you aren't being truly challenged, and your learning experience is diminished. Edit. And I do want to point out that what I said about kids in advanced classes isn't always true, but I'm willing to stake money on the fact that a larger percentage of kids that take those advanced classes do end up more successful than those that don't. Now, however you want to measure success is up to you, but I think most people have a fairly good idea of what that might look like. Everyone knows that the military wastes money, particularly in the US, but the actual amount of money is truly mind-boggling. There's a piece of equipment we sell that occasionally gets a bit finicky, 30 or 40 of them a month actually. If the military ships it to us, we run it through a 2-hour test and find nothing wrong. We ship it back. No parts, no repairs, nothing. To be clear, these are no bigger than a case of wine. The cost of that process? Over $20 grand. That's half a year's salary for a teacher for effectively shipping and handling, and a 2-hour test. The $10K on a toilet seat joke is not an exaggeration at all. I've seen us waste over $30K on a box of screws that we threw away because they came without the right paperwork. Didn't ask for the papers, didn't send them back, just pitched them and submitted another order. We have small pieces of test equipment that cost about $50K that we spend $11,000 a month to rent for a couple of years at a time and charge it all to the armed forces lowest bidder. My ass. We might be the lowest bidder, but every extra breath we breathe on that item adds a third onto the cost. We sometimes identify software problems, but don't fix them. We bundle all the fixes up in one package, and 3 years after selling the unit, we sell the software that's been sitting in our finisher since day one to them for $10 million. They know we do this. They don't care. Does something fail a test and they want us to reperform a test? Contract says run the test. Oh, it doesn't say perform the test repeatedly until it passes? Well, they are going to have to pay us more to do it again. Or $387 million contract will net us $500 million before we ship one part. I hate this. We throw things away because they are taking up space and we will just buy another one when we need it again. We'll order a $5,000 spool of wire 250 feet long to use 6 feet and ditch the rest. I can't stand throwing away cheese with mold on the outside, and I've watched as we blow up a $11,000 component because the software was wrong. After a meeting using up thousands of dollars of time, software wins and we put a replacement component in, run the test again, same result. Another fight at a meeting, software wins again, we throw out the entire batch of components, order another, and run the test again. Same faking result. Third meeting at something like $17,000 an hour and software finally concedes. They take a small look and oops, it's a bug. We fixed it. All that material, time, and money just burned. We spent $160,000 painting our building and putting up pretty pictures for a visit from a high-ranking military official that lasted 6 hours. And for what? Thousands of honest military lives lost to not a single honest cause in my lifetime. Tiny paychecks with virtually no benefits for the manufacturing guys doing work way out of their skill range. Massive bonuses for the executives, multi-million-dollar name changes for better publicity, and a once monthly sanctimonious email from the CEO feeding us corporate bullshit lines about how we are doing crucial work supporting our men in uniform. Which is why the record profit announcements can come in the same week as a new benefits cut. Fact that we are using money that should go to soldiers' families to body armor, and to pay restitution to the families of the innocent we kill to assuage the egos of stubborn contract negotiators and pad executive bonuses. It truly breaks me every day. I only wish I knew what to do to stop all this, but I fear there's nothing I can do. This one irks me. 5 years ago I woke up at 2 AM with a finger on fire. I went to inspect the finger in the kitchen light. It was normal when I went to bed and passed out from the pain. I woke up on the kitchen floor with a broken tailbone from the fall, and my finger was still on fire. Called the ambulance, and the paramedics treated me like I was insane. They diagnosed me as having a panic attack and asked me if I really wanted them to transport me for a finger. Yes, I do. I get to the hospital, and they told the doctor and nurse I was fine and just had a panic attack. I had to further explain I passed out, fully lost consciousness, from the pain in my finger, and my butt was killing me. The doctor and nurse initially didn't believe me because of what the paramedics told them. They inspected my finger, and lo and behold, I had red streaks from a burgeoning blood infection running down my hand. X-ray on my tailbone, and yup, it's broken point. I was so offended the paramedics minimized my condition and diagnosed me with a panic attack when clearly I had a serious medical emergency. I get that there are a lot of loonies who abuse the ambulance service, but sometimes there are emergencies that may not look like an emergency on the surface. On most, not all, projects I've worked on in gaming, we have bigger allowances in terms of time/effort/freebies we are allowed to give out to assist players when they are big spenders. For example, you may be allowed 3 minutes maximum to work on an on-payback S support ticket, 5 minutes on a minnow and 15 on a whale. Or you're allowed to fully return premium currency a whale spent accidentally, for example to speed up a farm crop or something, but it's a no-go for the others. It's usually less stringent on small projects, but on bigger ones I've ended up investigating missing items for players off the clock, because it took 40 to 50 minutes which we aren't allowed, but I was feeling bad for the player. For example, because the items lost were very rare event stuff or the player was a parent asking for a devastated kid. However, I've also witnessed big projects going above and beyond for some players. One that comes to mind was a 12-year-old that saved up for a microtransaction. She wanted a specific event pet by babysitting, and when she finally had the pet she accidentally deleted it. We had to escalate it twice because the thing was quite pricey, but in the end the dev sent her a replacement and some goodies. Unfortunately, many players also abuse this. We've had people claiming their kid is dying of cancer, using stock images to try and get free premium currency and the like, or with games that use geodata they claim disability to excuse using bots, even though their Facebook account connected to the game clearly showed they are a healthy 20-year-old soccer player, etc. I used to work for lab at a university. I'd repair equipment for students and help them troubleshoot. 9 times out of 10 there was absolutely nothing wrong with whatever they brought to me. The only issue was that they didn't know how to use it. The problem was that they all had overblown and fragile egos, so they'd refuse to believe they could ever make any kind of mistake. At first I'd try to be straight with them, but they'd just get mad and try to file complaints against me for telling them when they were wrong. I got tired of it and just took whatever they came to me with, replaced it, held it out of sight for a second, and handed it back to them, and then just go through the correct steps slowly and clearly. There would always be a moment during the explanation when I could see where they figured out what they were screwing up. Then when they went back to the lab, magically their experiment would work. The other guys who worked with me started doing the same. The lesson I learned was that most people who get into good schools are no smarter than anyone else. They just had the money/time/resources and a willingness to jump through academic hoops to get where they are. I swear I met some of the dumbest people I've ever known through that job. A lot of wedding photographers prey on the gullible public. They show up at the event with 20k of camera gear, often one on each side, each with battery grips to make them larger and look more pro, and they make you think their services are worth it. But what often happens is they will charge you $4,000 and up to shoot your wedding, and then give you previews for you to select and pay them again for the photos, and even more for the prints. You could pay thousands of dollars and get literally nothing because that's the fee for them to show up and shoot. They do this because after the event day is done with they have your most important memories hostage and can do whatever they want. Some even develop a system of presets they save from previous jobs or outright just buys presets, and the editing process is often selecting the photos that aren't blurry and slapping on a preset in one click and then some minor white balance and exposure tweaking and done. You can do that to an entire batch of photos in less than an hour. I'm not saying all wedding photographers are this scummy, but you'd be surprised how many I've met that are. I've stayed away from shooting for that industry altogether, despite doing that can make money hand over fist. Edit. Please stop assuming I'm specifically referring to your friend or relative that does wedding photography. I don't know them, and I'm not accusing them of anything. I'm only pointing out observations I've made working in that industry in the past and the alarming large amount of people who were unprofessional and borderline scamming their clients. Former profession. Furniture. Markup in furniture is astronomical. Anyone asking for even 40% right off the top is likely to get it without much fuss, because even after 40% the profit margins are still absolutely huge. It is one of the few industries where cross-shopping actually works. Furniture turnover is much lower than, say, vehicle sales. It is typically better to give a massive discount and move the inventory than risk them walking out the door, as the odds of them coming back are incredibly low. Near zero if they immediately go down the road to the competitor and tell them they were just over at X. Almost all furniture under $2,500 is built to the same terrible standards. Even furniture that claims to be built with solid wood or real wood are allowed to be marketed as such, even if all it has is a single cut of 2x4 that is used somewhere in the piece. The incredible majority of furniture in the average American's budget and home is plywood and lots of heavy-duty nails, staples, on the inside. Furniture warranty is as purposefully obtuse and difficult to utilize for the consumer as possible, simply because misuse and/or abuse is such a low bar to reach that almost every claim can be denied under it. For those that end up getting the process to happen, it will take weeks or months to get done because it is such a low priority task on any list anywhere. So much so that the warranty work is likely to be done by a local guy who has skill enough to fix furniture. An old carpenter with a fetish for furniture, if you are lucky. Although, by the time you get to this point it is typically much cheaper for the manufacturer to just give you a new piece than fix the old one. Edit. Lamps. These little things are pure gold. Lamps are $15 a set and retail for $250 a set. On the floor they are so cheap and cheaply made that many multiples of the same set get purchased at one time. Half of them will be broken by the time they make it from overseas and through shipping to the store that you have to. Want 2 sets of X lamp? Order 3 sets. You will be able to create 1 set to show and 1 set to go to sell to the customer. The other 2 broken ones you make a manufacturer claim, take a picture, store gets the money back, toss the broken in the garbage. Lamps and little add-ons like this are just printing money. Grocery retail buyer here. I'm the guy that deals with manufacturers to get product to the stores. Product is ordered from vendors typically weeks, sometimes months depending on vendor location, customs, inspections etc. in advance. Oh, my store is out of toilet paper. Why don't they just bring in more and restock it? Yeah, that's because all of you hoarding sheet bags went nuts and literally bought 3 months of toilet paper in a week. That kind of hit to the supply chain doesn't get fixed overnight. Not to mention shipping logistics. When grocery retail volume literally doubles overnight, that means the supply chain would have to double to keep up. What? You think your grocery chain had twice as many trucks, warehouses, drivers, warehouse workers, stockers just sitting around waiting to be needed? No. Of course not. Don't be stupid. There's only so much capacity in the system. Which also means decisions have to be made on what gets shipped and in what quantity. Why is my store is out of my favorite non-GMO, gluten-free, vegan, eco-friendly, conflict-free, non-soy based iced coffee? Because if we put that stupid item on a truck it's taking up the space a high demand item could have taken. Steps on soapbox. How to get a lower price on a vehicle at a car dealership. Don't call the store just to ask if that's their bottom dollar price. Bless your heart, we should knock the price down because you asked kindly? Yeah, no. You can just take any number and go up the street to the next dealership and say we offered less on the same vehicle. We know that game. We're already trying to put the lowest number online that we can, while still profiting enough. Sure, you can make an offer, but if you're just asking for $4,000 less, isn't that the same? My manager might counter with a few hundred off, and then you will get offended because you were hoping to buy the vehicle for the price we bought it for. Here is when you have the most leverage. You're at the store and you have a trade-in vehicle that seems in great condition. You vacuumed it and topped off the fluids and did some of the things we do when we try to sell a car in its best possible condition. We want to buy that car. You have a Cherokee and you saw beforehand that we have no Cherokees in stock, so if we take yours, that's something we can sell that we didn't have before, and it's not an old Grand Vitara. You're at the store and it is the end of the month. Dealerships have tiered sales quotas on new vehicles, on makes, and one more sale might pay handsomely come payday. A salesman might be one away from his tier bonus or a hat trick daily pay bonus. Manufacturer rebates end in a few hours, and there's no guarantee the price won't jump next month from vanishing rebates, so pressure is not just on you. That's the time where we might break even or lose a little on a sale to earn our bonuses. So you're a member of Costco. You get cell service throughout. You got Hilton rewards and you're counting frequent flyer miles. Many memberships and accounts for major companies grant discounts in conjunction with car manufacturers, and whatever discount will be way more than the cost of the membership. I think GM is offering $1,000 to pre-existing Costco members towards a new Silverado. But if you're lazy, just mention all of your memberships and groups to the salesman who is trying to get to your price. In recent memory, she was getting married. Bridezilla isn't even the right word for the hell she put everyone through. Our parents are wealthy business owners and they agreed to help pay for the wedding, and they got taken for a ride. She assured them that getting a tent and having it outside would be cheaper than renting a hall. It wasn't. Parents then had to buy grass seed for the area they were getting married at. They then paid the rental fees for the tent, the tables, the chairs, the washrooms, etc. $150 a set on the floor. They are so cheap and cheaply made that many multiples of the same set. Kids are misusing equipment while employees are slacking off and not intervening. Also, the waiver doesn't protect the manufacturer of the products involved. Again, not a scrape or bruise, but if a kid is seriously hurt due to a defective product, there is absolutely a legitimate claim. If you sign a waiver before going into the gym and then you get hurt due to faulty equipment, don't fall into the trap of thinking, oh well, I signed a waiver. You can't waive negligence, and the manufacturer can't waive their responsibility to make safe products that do what they claim they do. A general retail open secret list. We hate the store so much that we would gladly let you walk out with a cheap product without paying for it if we are too tired/bored to care. Please note that pissing us off makes us the opposite of tired/bored. Point be nice in general, because we will toe the company's policy just to tell you to go fuck yourself. No one gets fired for being a great employee. Point. If it's a restaurant, you can ask if there's any good deals you can take advantage of. And most shopping places have apps to get access to coupons. Don't ask for the manager if you want to be taken seriously. Point. If you're a regular customer who comes and beaches the regular employees, eventually work as a team to fuck you over at every corner of the store, we will find a way to let you know you're not welcomed. Point. If you're a regular customer, fill out the surveys with positive remarks and we'll take notice and go out of our way to make you beyond happy. This especially works if you're a pharmacy customer. If you fill out the survey, give us the highest rating for everything, or just fail us. Corporate rides our managers whole for a 9/10. That makes them the opposite of tired/bored. Point. You can open stuff before buying it, so long as you fully intend to pay for it. Just be aware of how messy the product is. We have cameras everywhere. We mostly mock regular thieves and people with bad hygiene. Point. Your purchase is either very normal and we don't pay notice, or very abnormal and we discuss this when the store is empty. Condoms, Vaseline, and vibrators are nothing to be embarrassed about. But why is the Teen Scene magazine a part of this purchase? Do not come during the first 30 minimums of the store's hours. Do not come during the last 15 minimums of the store's hours. Do not come before opening or after closing and making demands! 13. If you come during a reasonable time when the employees have set up business to run smoothly and they are not looking forward to punching out soon, you will get the best service possible. 14. The aisles have labels and everything is organized in a way for commonly sold items to be found immediately. If you're looking for a severely uncommonly sold item, employees won't be much help by the 15. Google is your friend. Check if a store carries a product, and if you can have a photo of it, that'll get you in and out quick. 16. If you pocket a relatively cheap item and walking out with it, we won't notice or care. Do it regularly enough at one location is what gets you into hot water. 17. No, seriously, if you steal from a store, employees won't care. Especially if there's no security guard. 18. Don't use public restrooms. You don't want to know the kind of people who proudly use public restrooms. 19. The employee isn't interested in you by any means. He/she doesn't want your number, search, or even a conversation. At most they want to thank you, have a nice day, and for you to leave. 20. You don't need to work retail to tell apart busy employees from lazy ones. Either way, be polite when interrupting their conversations. When you need help, complain in the survey if they are talking about their business life with that customer who said thank you, have a nice day. As a server, if you're nice to me, I will go above and beyond to make your experience as pleasant as possible and your bill as cheap as possible. My regulars get as many freebies as I can give them. If you're rude to me, then I will nickel and dime you, and you're officially my last priority. Servers remember who tips well and who doesn't. They will pass that information on to the server taking care of you. That will affect your experience. I have zero control on what items we have in stock, the prices, or how quickly the food comes out. Please don't let any of those factors affect my income. I love my job, I've met some of the coolest people, and I have a schedule that fits my lifestyle perfectly. But my paychecks are often less than $100 every 2 weeks, and that's working full time. I know you have to take the good with the bad, but who doesn't want to minimize the bad in their life? Oh, and one last thing, servers are literally required to be nice to you. Please don't make this awkward by asking them for their number. If you really feel that strongly about it, leave it on the receipt with at least an appropriate tip, if not a really good one. If your server is single, interested, and working at a place that doesn't have a policy against dating customers, then they might hit you up. Just don't take it personal if they can't or won't get in contact with you. I'm a nurse at a psych hospital, an actual legit state-run psych hospital. We have 2 types of patient breakdowns, forensic and civil. The forensic patients are those who have a mental illness and committed a major crime. For their treatment, they have to attend therapy classes, participate in treatment, and take medicine and able to be discharged. They're usually at the hospital from 2 to 3 years. Now there are the civils. #1. Most civils have severe drug problems, mostly meth, which the hospital pretty doesn't address. I'll get to why. #2. Civils have a commitment of 6 months. They can only be held longer if they are still a danger to themselves or others. #3. They don't have to participate in treatment to leave, like drug treatment. Some can even get away with not taking medicine if they aren't dangerous. #4. Most get discharged to hotels, paid by the state, because they have nowhere else to go. They're homeless. Most skip out on the hotel, or get arrested again with 24 hours. The record was 20 minutes before one of our patients got arrested again after discharge. And yes, we got him back. #5. Meth does make you schizophrenic. The one psychiatrist said he would use meth-induced schizophrenia if it was an approved diagnosis. Also, long-term meth use literally makes you functionally retarded. After years of abuse, we have guys who have forgotten how to take care of themselves.